My name is Anna Wise. I am one of the admission officers here at Hamilton College. I am so glad to be joined by a fabulous panel of our current international students here on campus. So before we get started, I wanted to thank you very much for including Hamilton in your college search process. Particularly when we're living through difficult times like these, it can be sometimes very challenging to continue on pursuing your goals and ambitions of education in the United States. So we wanted to first thank you very much for continuing on towards those goals and also for including Hamilton as part of your college search process. Now, when you're starting your college search process, there's a lot of helpful information on the website, but sometimes it's really difficult to get an understanding of what it is truly like to be an international student at one of these campuses. So for today's presentation, for today's panelists, we're going to be talking about student life here at Hamilton from an international student perspective. And as I said, we have an all-star group of student panelists today. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves. We're going to ask them their name, their year, their hometown and home country, their major or their intended major, and then 2 or 3 activities that you're involved with across campus. I'm going to ask us to start with Yassine.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Yassine. I am a sophomore here at Hamilton. I'm from Tunisia. My major is computer science. And some of the things I do here on campus, I play club soccer, and I am a student photographer for the school.
Thank you. Thank you. Sherry.
Great. Can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm a senior majoring in anthropology and economics on campus. I work at the admissions. I also work at a school cafe. Sometimes I take some pictures for the communication office as well.
And where are you from, Sherry?
I was born in Harbin, China.
Thank you. Thank you. And Tinashe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tinashe. I'm from Harare, Zimbabwe. I'm a freshman, and my intended major is currently it's between Africana Studies and Creative Writing. Yeah, is that it? Is that good?
A couple activities you're involved in.
A couple activities, yes. So I'm involved with some of the spiritual life activities on campus. I'm involved with the school newspaper as well. And I'm also involved with some of the community outreach work that we do on campus. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you. Thank you. And Victor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victor Lu. I'm a senior here at Hamilton College from Beijing, China. I'm majoring in anthropology. I minored to arts. Besides this, I also work in the admission office as a fellow. I work in the communications office and also part of the student activities board.
Thank you. Thank you. So as you can see, we have students from across every different year here at Hamilton from all around the world and all different types of majors. So I'm really excited for the types of insights they can give into student experience here at Hamilton. Now we've kind of planned for a few questions ahead of time, but we want to invite you to ask your questions of the panelists as well. So you'll find also not on camera right now is my colleague, Nikki Barron, who's another one of the admission officers here. She is going to be monitoring the Q&A section and answering some questions and also passing some questions off to our panelists. So if you have questions, please do feel free to submit them in the Q&A session and we'll make sure that they are answered. But with that said, we're going to start with a pretty basic starting question, which is how did you first find out about Hamilton? Why did you apply and why did you enroll? So there's kind of a lot in that, right? But I'd love to start with Victor. So how did you first hear about Hamilton? What made you apply and what made you enroll?
Absolutely. So I've had a friend who went to Hamilton before me. So he was telling me all about, Hamilton, especially its open curriculum, how, beautiful the campus is. So I decided, yeah, I'll apply as well. And the reasons, particularly for me to choose Hamilton in the beginning was, really the small class ratio. I think that really let me, thrive in the discussion-based type of class. So I was able to connect with my peers and my professors really well. For example, I chose my major in anthropology. It was mainly due to my advisor at the time. He happened to be the chair of the anthropology department. So I was able to just pop into his office, talking about academics, talking about life in general. So he really helped me navigate, the open curriculum system because I had no idea what I wanted to learn in the beginning. Throughout my first year, I took 7 classes in different disciplines. So I was just, exploring everything. So, and my advisor at the time really helped me, pin down what my interests were. So I ultimately decided to choose anthropology, and and that my first year experience really made me navigate and find my true college life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's helpful when you have a friend who can talk to you a little bit about that experience and then
Absolutely.
get your own experiences as well, right? I wonder, Yassine, if you can talk to us a little bit about where did you first hear about Hamilton and what made you decide to enroll?
Yeah, I mean, going into college, I knew that I wanted to apply to a small liberal arts school. So that was definitely the type of school I was going for. And then it was really a matter of which school fit me the most. Because a lot of these liberal arts schools, they might sound the same, but you really have to dig deep to find, some of the differences. And for me, the difference about Hamilton was really how small and compact, even compared to the smaller schools, and the support system you get here, and just overall, the good things I heard about classes. I remember, reading some comments online about, how really professors expect you to attend all classes. They really give individual care, and I was not wrong to assume so, because when I came here, everything I heard about the school was right, and I decided to enroll. Well, when I got accepted ED, I feel like that was the only right thing to do. So I enrolled right away.
So yeah, you kind of made that decision along with I'm going to apply and then enroll here, which is the ED type decision. So I know, Tinashe, you did not apply ED to Hamilton. Do you want to talk about how you first heard about Hamilton and what made you decide to enroll?
Sure. I actually did almost apply ED to Hamilton. I was very confused at this time last year, but that's another story altogether. I'm not sure I can point to one particular scenario about first hearing about Hamilton. I feel like it was scattered throughout the last 3 or 4 years, really. Turns out I met a junior here who's also from Zimbabwe, and turns out we'd met before. And at the time when we met, he was just about to go to Hamilton. So I think that was the first time I heard about Hamilton. Then fast forward to a couple of years later, I'm talking to my guidance counselor, and she had a Hamilton bottle about it. I asked her about it, and then she told me about the school. That was fascinating. And then my roommate at the time, he was applying to college, and Hamilton was on his list. And so it was these many different indicators of just Hamilton, Hamilton. It was very recurring in my life for the last few years. And so I decided to give it a look, and then I decided to apply. And somehow I got in, which was pretty cool. And so my decision to come here was pretty easy because I was in a position where I had so many interests. I have so many different things that I want to explore, so many different things that I want to do. And so I think the open curriculum really sold that for me because I was very critical about what type of curriculum I wanted to study for the next few years. And some of the schools, some of the offers that I had, they were pretty good schools, but then what made Hamilton great was this flexibility, and not just in the classroom as well. Outside the classroom, there are just so many different things to do, and you're not forced to do things. And so I think that was just the stepping stone for me, and that was ultimately why I decided to come here.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're talking a lot about a bunch of impressions that we've had ahead of time, right? So Cherry, I'd love to ask you if you had impressions of Hamilton's campus and community before you arrived. Were those different? Were they what you expected? How did that kind of transition to campus based on, how'd that work out for you?
Yeah. Well, I remember like reading a college guidebook about Hamilton saying that Hamilton's community is like freakish nice. And I always wonder what that word means. I did got to do a college visit here at Hamilton, and I remember I was lost. I was trying to go to like a humanities building here, and then I asked one of the cafe owners at the time, and they drew me this like map. Like I like at the moment I was just like, oh, I'm just someone who was visiting, and then they're just so nice to me, and I really do think, I mean, based on all of you guys, which I cannot see, like future interactions with like admission officers or like future tour guides or just people from Hamilton, I do think if you watch the way we talk, like our tonalities and all of that, like we do genuinely care for each other. And that is something that really comes through, even the the impression before and versus after 3.5 years being here.
So talking about the community and everything and that whole freakishly, yeah, we use that word, right? Freakishly friendly, that whole thing. If you think about arriving to campus, of course, there's like, I know after going through the application process, there's oftentimes a lot of nervousness. What's it going to be like to arrive on campus, right? I wonder if Tinashe, if you could tell us a little bit of information, like what do you wish you had known before you got to campus? What would that be?
Sure. I think, okay, so I think the notion with liberal arts colleges, at least where I'm from, it's liberal arts colleges is small and you're very limited and there's not that many people and there's not that much to do. And so at the back of my mind, I think that was there. It was, okay, Hamilton is great, it's going to be there, but it's going to feel like a bubble at times. I wish I'd known just how huge this campus is, because when I first got here, I realized it could take 15 minutes to walk from one building, which is my residence hall, to a place where I was going to have my class, and then it would take another 10 minutes to go to another location where I have my other class. And to me, that just shows just the expansive nature of this place and how vast it is. And when you look at some of the numbers, it seems like there are not that many compared to other colleges, but then you don't bump into the same people every day. It's like you can meet someone new every day. And so that's just exciting for me to think there's so much untapped potential. And given that I'm a freshman right now, there's still so much to do and so much to explore. And I think that's the beauty of this space too, because it's large, but then it won't feel overwhelming. I think it's just the perfect type of large, at least for me. So it's pretty great. It's pretty great in that aspect. So I wish I'd known that, then I would have adequately prepared for that, but it's great so far. It's going great so far.
Yeah, the size of the campus is a really hard thing to figure out online, right? Even if you go through all of our online tours and we have all of these virtual tour programs, but still, how do you do spatial type ideas? It's 1,300 acres out here. It's a huge campus on top of a hill, which kind of also gives a little bit of that geography right there. Victor, if you were to think about something you wish you had known before coming to Hamilton, what would that be?
Absolutely. So mine's less about the academics. Well, I knew Hamilton was going to be cold, but I wasn't expecting how much snow we were gonna get each year. So my first year here, it started snowing in October. So right now it's November 2nd. If it were my first year, it would already be snowing outside. So I remember the specific day. It was snowing in the morning of October 29th. And then, it was like a big snow, and then I wasn't prepared at all. I did not have a coat. I did not have boots. And then, so, after it snowed, I just rushed, into, at the time it was Macy's on the weekend in New Hartford. I just, went to Timberland. I got some boots, got some coat, stuff like that. So, and then it was just snowing nonstop for the next like 5 months. So, but I like that. I like the cold. So I'm a person. I grew up in the north part of China, so I like the cold, and snow got me really excited. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know it does, of course, snow in Beijing, but it's a little bit different levels, right? So we have a kind of a joke here, which says there's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing, right? So I know that there are at least 2 people on this call who didn't have as much experience with snow ahead of time. So I'd love to pass that to Yassine. How was your first experience with snow? How was that transition? Tunisia, not a lot of snow, right? No.
My first experience with snow was my first day here on campus.
Oh wow.
So I was a Jan, so I came here in January, and it was very snowy when I came here. And I remember someone from the transportation department, which are the people here on campus in charge of like helping students go around. If it wasn't for them, I would have been completely lost, because of a lot of, COVID complications and everything. We had basically people from the college working with students individually to help them get places, get them out of quarantine. So yeah, I had someone from the transportation department drive me to my hall, to my residence hall, and then they helped me move in. And I just remember sitting in there and I'm like, this is freezing cold. And like Victor said, I did not think about this. I did not bring any like heavy coats or anything. And fun fact, I didn't even bring blankets or sheets with me my first day on college. So I had Tessa, who was in charge of like the first years on campus. She got me everything I needed for my first night. And then as soon as possible, they got me out of campus to get some coats and everything. So I'm very grateful for the people who stood by me when I was freezing.
Yeah, that's a challenging part of the experience as well. I know we have at least a few other students who come from warmer climates who say, I bought the warmest coat I could find in my local like city. And then just the reality is it's a different situation. I know I heard an interesting fact recently, which is Hamilton has an outdoor adventure center here on campus that houses our outing club. So they do actually have big puffy down winter jackets that you can borrow there. I didn't know. But I think that actually helps us transition a little bit to a topic I'd love to talk about, which is what happens when you first arrive, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to know what's the orientation process like. Now, I know each of us on this call has had a very different orientation process based on where we started, but Tinashe has most recently gone through that experience. So Tinashe, can you talk to us about what was your experience like? Or maybe talking about oh, you didn't go on your orientation trip, did you? That's true. No, because again, of a COVID complication. This is one of the challenging with COVID complications. Okay, so then pivot. Victor, can you talk to us about what a traditional time orientation trip would be?
Yeah, of course. So when I was here, I was part of this group, Adirondack Adventure. So the Adirondack Park is not too far from the campus, about 2-hour drive to the heart of the Adirondacks. So I was part of the canoeing trip, but at the time I had no experience canoeing at all. So it was my first time canoeing. No, I never canoed before. I've done like kayaking a little bit before, but never canoed. So yeah, I wasn't expecting 4 days straight. I was just for the next 4 days I was canoeing with my group of people. I think my group was about 8. We canoed about 50 miles in the course of 4 days. No one had any access to shower. We just had our own food every day, such as bagels, sausage, ham, and oatmeal and stuff like that. So we were camping out for the 4 nights, and then every time we wake up, we would just be like paddling and stuff like that. But it was such an adventure. I've never done that as a person growing up in a city. So it was just had no contact with human civilization whatsoever. We were just in our own group talking to each other, canoeing and paddling. So it was super fun. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's part of what Hamilton's orientation process is, right? One of the first things we do usually in non-COVID times, and we've been trying to bring them back recently as well, is the orientation trips, which is a few day trips, either into the Adirondacks, which is Victor's experience, or doing a service program, or sometimes they have like, this year, I think there's one that was focused on cheese somehow or other. I'm not sure how that connects to service. But the idea being giving students an initial experience and helping to build community. Now, we do have a question, which has just been submitted by a student online saying, what are some popular events in the Hamilton community and how do people come together? So I think this kind of connects a little bit to that idea. How do we build community and some popular events? So I'm going to ask Cherry, what do you think about when you think about popular events and building community here at Hamilton?
I mean, there are so many of them. For example, one of my favorite is we have this whole school concert by the end of the semester. So usually like in April or May. that everyone can just come together and we go to live concert together. And usually there would be like food trucks. It's just a great time for us to relax before the finals. If you guys like hockey or like lacrosse games, I think a lot of times, like I personally love to go to lacrosse games. And I know that we have a big hockey game at the beginning of the semester as well. So that would be in September or October. We call it Citrus Bowl. So the reason it's called Citrus Bowl is because back in the days, students would throw citrus fruits at the rink when Hamilton scores first goal. So that's something that we'll just like to go and hang out together.
So are you allowed to bring citrus to Citrus Bowl anymore? No. Yassine says big shake no. So that's one of our Hamilton traditions, Citrus Bowl. And yeah, they will literally check your pockets for pieces of orange now, because you're not allowed to throw oranges because it's kind of risky, dangerous for the people on this ice or something like that. But apparently you can bring apples in because they assume you're not going to throw apples, is what I've heard. But I don't know if anybody's tried that. So yeah, so that's kind of some of the events that we do each year. That's on Class and Charter Day, right, in the spring. And these types of recurring events are definitely something that's really important to bringing our community together. So I'd love to talk a little bit about, again, coming back to the beginning of your time here at Hamilton. So now one of the things that students are oftentimes a little bit nervous about is how do I get to Hamilton College, right? So of course, realizing that we're not located in New York City. So if you fly and you land in New York City and you think I'm here, I've made it, you still have a little bit of a journey to go, right? So I'm wondering if we could talk about what the process was like arriving to Hamilton College. And I'm going to ask again, Cherry, do you want to let us know what's the process like arriving, getting to campus?
Yes. So usually people fly into Syracuse, and there isn't usually a direct flight from, at least not, there isn't a direct flight from Syracuse or from China to Syracuse. So usually people fly from, I don't know, for example, like Beijing to JFK or Newark, which are the two major airports in New York City-ish. And then you fly from there to Syracuse. And then usually, especially for international students, there will be someone, you can arrange a transportation from the college and they can pick you up from Syracuse. So from there, you can just take the bus or the car to campus. Usually it takes about 45 to 50 minutes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Yassine, you were talking a little bit about a transportation service office, right? And I know both you and Cherry were involved this year in helping to do trips to Target and things like that for new students so that they would find sheets in a way, right? So do you want to talk to us a little bit about what that looks like, Yassine? So transportation office, and also when students first arrive, assuming in not your experience, but how you helped this year with the fall.
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, with the transportation office, basically, these are people, sometimes they even have student workers that work there. You might have a friend that works at the transportation office, and basically they have a fleet of cars where you can email them and say, hey, at this point in time, I'm planning to go to the airport. I need someone to drive me there, or I have a doctor's appointment. And basically all you have to do is email them. They're very flexible. So it's not like a very formal thing. Very flexible. You email them and they'll be like, okay, you'll have a driver to pick you up that day. As to the international student orientation, so this year, people like me, for example, who missed out a little bit, we wanted to make sure that future international students have the full experience. And we planned this little orientation throughout multiple days where we had some presentations, some talks with different people that work in different branches of the school. So like the international students will have an entire view of what possibilities are on campus. And then we had a little fun. We had some activities as international students. We gave them a tour of the school, and also we planned some trips to go to Target, to go to the mall, basically. It was very interesting. We had a huge bus. We went to the mall, and the bus was sitting there for like maybe 4 hours. And we could barely fit on our way back with all the bags and all the things people have bought. But yeah, it was very fun. We definitely learned from our mistakes. We made a list for what students should look to buy, so that, you know, I found it very neat that, you know, international students from last year could, you know, learn from their mistakes, see what went wrong with them, and basically make sure that future students are all set. I really like that.
You talked about the bus being so full. I'm interested. What's the strangest thing somebody bought on that trip? Do you remember
Oh.
anything funny that somebody
Okay,
bought?
someone, okay, yes.
We don't need to name names.
No, yeah. I saw someone at Walmart with a mattress. And
Bought a whole
and
extra
they and
mattress.
yeah, and they were like, yeah, I want to take the mattress with me. And I was like, I don't think it can fit.
Gonna
But
put a
then
mattress on a bus. Just to
I saw
clarify,
someone,
everybody has a mattress already, right?
yeah,
So-
yeah. I saw someone that bought a whole sound system, like a surround sound system.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Fancy. All right. Fabulous. So let's pivot a little bit. I know several people, when we were talking about why you picked Hamilton, we're talking about the open curriculum. And we have a question that's submitted in the chat, which says, what was or is the most mind-blowing class that you've taken and why? So a class that you've been like really excited about, something that's been really surprising, interesting, whatever you describe mind-blowing as. So I'm wondering if I can ask Victor this question.
Absolutely. So the most mind-blowing class, or maybe the most unique class I've taken here at Hamilton, was a higher level digital studio art class. So I knew that it was going to be a niche class where not that many people were going to take it, but I did not know that it would end up being just 2 students. It was just me and another student. Yeah, but with 4 professors. So it was 4 professors to 2 students. So each professor were in charge of a different area. Aspect of digital art. So we had a professor in charge of video editing, professor who you can ask about Adobe Premiere, a professor for light and design, and another professor for general artistic ideas and stuff like that. So every class it was just me and another student facing 4 professors. So we were basically able to design our own class. We were able to write our own syllabus. Told the professor what we were interested in, what we wanted to learn in terms of editing skills, lighting designs, digital art, anything about digital art. So it was a really fun class because I was able to really make it individualized with another friend, and we were able to we wanted to learn about abstract photography or abstract videography. So and the professors were able to help us with that. So that was my most unique and mind-blowing experience.
I think that's the one thing I would think, though, is if there's only 2 of you in class, you better not be late, right? And you better do the homework, because otherwise, if you don't do the homework, 50% of the class hasn't done the homework. So yeah, absolutely. Tinashe, I know you're in your first semester, but if you were to pick one of your classes that you think would be the most mind-blowing, which one would that be?
That's a very great question, but it's also very tricky because I love all of my classes, if I'm being honest. I think I'm biased, but I think I have the best schedule this semester because
Tell
I
us
played
about your
around with it.
schedule. What's your schedule?
Yes. Oh, my schedule. Right. So currently I'm taking French theater, anthropology, and I say French theater, anthropology, and Africana studies. So the whole liberal arts experience right there. At one point I took dance as well. So I was all over the place. I was really exploring, really going into it. And so I love all of my classes for very many different reasons. But I could talk about my favorite class right now, which is, okay. I had one, but then I also, anthropology. I'll highlight anthropology in this session. And I think I really love anthropology because literally your thoughts are correct in anthropology, but they're also wrong. So it's very interesting to find that intersection because my professor, she's great, but she's crazy, but she's great, but she's crazy. And so in that class, we discussed a range of things from very important societal matters, from like culture and race and language and gender. So these very complex issues, but then you're challenged, but then it's a it's a challenge you're willing to take up. At least that's what I've experienced and I've witnessed in that class. And it's one of the bigger classes because it's an intro class currently. So there's about 40 students, but she sees each one of us and she's very attentive to our individual needs. And that's evidenced through some of the essays we write and the comments that she puts down and scheduling office hours, for example. And so it's a great class. It's a great class because I feel like I really apply myself when I get into that class in particular in terms of how I think and what I think and who I think with. It's mind blowing. It's crazy. It's a great class. Anthropology is great.
We had a couple of anthropology majors in the background who were like, yeah, that makes sense to me, that tracks. Absolutely. So if we think about so of course, being able to invest yourself in classes like that, and it sounds like you already have quite a busy semester, Tinashe, and I know everyone on this call is no stranger to busy semesters and schedules. I'm wondering, how do you balance, right? So if you come to a new country and you're studying, you're focused on your academics, but there has to be more to life than academics, right? So how do you balance this type of idea of academics and extracurriculars, or just really what it takes to be a human being through that process? I'm wondering, Cherry, can you talk to us a little bit about that? How do you balance?
I mean, that's a great question. I think about that every single day. How can I prioritize the things I care more about? I think when it comes to balancing, I think first you have to have priorities. Like maybe this week I have a big midterm coming up. Maybe I should prioritize my academic a little more than my social time, or than I also have like alone time, but I think what's important of having like a balanced schedule is you want some like a sparkle of like social time. You also want to have time that you can actually sit down and study. And I know a lot of us are working here on campus. You also want to balance the amount of time you work versus the amount of time you're actually like taking care of yourself. Like, I don't really like the word self-care, but like you should just at least have your alone time and to decompress. I mean, I use Google Calendar. I think that's a great tool. I mean, a lot of people use like different kind of planners. I know that my suite mate, they will like color code their planners too. I mean, there are tons of ways you can like make sure your day is running smoothly. But I think the most important thing is mindset. In the end of the day, is just having like, you can like go through the day without stressing about it. I think that's a great mindset to have.
All right, Yassine, we've had some pretty big reactions. So I'm gonna ask you the same question. How do you balance? What does balance mean to you?
For me, especially this semester, as you progress towards your major and academics get really serious. I feel for me, balance means staying knowing when to spend time studying, when to take time off. Really, for me, taking time off, like Cherry said, could be just having some alone time, but also sticking to one thing. That's my one advice. Now, you can try out different things your freshman year and basically go to all the club meetings, go to all the activities, but long term, I definitely say it's very useful to stick to one thing and commit to it. For me, I would say my favorite thing to do when I'm not studying is probably taking pictures. And I commit to it, and that definitely took me places. It got me my first job on campus, but also this year it got me involved with athletics, which is something that I'm really passionate about in the first place. And I found myself working with the school's photographer to take pictures of like games, travel with them sometimes. And I just took pictures for seniors for soccer, and they gave me this shirt.
Oh, hey.
So yeah, honestly, find what you're passionate about. There's probably someone here on campus that will help you pursue that. That's the one thing I really tell people.
So that type of idea, right? Of finding your place, finding your passion, and also freshman year exploring, first year exploring different subjects. So that kind of makes me think about how hard is that to do, right? If I'm coming from an international student, I'm coming to my first semester, how hard is it for me to find out about what types of clubs are offered and to get involved with that? So Tinashe, as a first year student, do you want to talk to us about a little bit what is that process like? Is it hard to find different clubs to get involved with? How does that work?
Sure. I think, like I mentioned earlier, Hamilton is very huge, it's expansive, and that's true in many regards. And I'm a very introverted person in that sometimes I like to retreat. But I've also realized coming into this space that being introverted does not necessarily mean I should isolate myself, because I miss out on so many different areas in which I could contribute to and so many different areas in which I can grow in. And so in terms of clubs, for example, there's this huge club fair that we had at the beginning of the semester. And when I say huge, I mean huge. I spent like 2 hours there just going from desk to desk. I probably signed up for 100 clubs. That is not an exaggeration. Probably all of them just, I could tell because I received emails after that. It was just like, thank you for signing up. I'm like, I don't remember you, but it's fine. It's great. I appreciate it. And I took the time to do this. And so I think opportunities exist if you're willing to push yourself and you're willing to go out there and find them. And the great thing is, even though there are a lot, there are also a ton of resources here. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention my Alex advisor right now, but
Yeah.
there are these, okay, so there are many different advisors on campus, and you have your academic advisor who, it's in the name, helps you with your academics. And then you have, I think, a peer advisor as well, who is just a student as well, who's also helping you based on their experience. And then an Alex advisor is essentially the person who connects you to all of these different opportunities that I talked about. And so I had a meeting with my advisor earlier this semester. I told her my interests, and she recommended so many different things for me to try out. And so resources like these help you narrow down all of these huge opportunities. And so while it may feel like a lot, you can always find ways to just find ways to just filter depending on what you like and what you want to do, what you're passionate about for your scene. If it's photography, how he could get involved with photography on campus in that regard. And so I think I'm just grateful for just some of those support systems as well. They really, really helped me in terms of narrowing down what I want. And I think now I'm in a position where I have some sort of vision, some sort of sight of where I want to go, but also giving myself that grace, knowing that I'm still a freshman, I can still explore, and there's so much more I don't know yet.
Absolutely. That whole idea, like learning that there's so much more to learn, right? That can be a definitely part of the first few years. And really, I think that's a lifelong thing, right? The more we learn, the more we realize there's more for me to still learn. Absolutely. I want to think a little bit about like the fact of our location. We've been talking a little bit about that as well. And I'm sure there are some students who would really love to know. In fact, we have a question that's asked, which says, what's a typical weeknight or weekend like on campus, right? So this question has been submitted. So I'm going to ask Victor, what's a traditional weeknight or weekend like here on campus?
So on a typical weeknight, I usually, just hang out with my friends and do some work together. Because I work with people really well. So when I work with my friends, I tend to finish my work quickly rather than doing my work alone. And then the weekend, because I'm involved with student activities, I'm usually in the planning committee or in the event staff committee. Planning out different activities, events for the weekend. For example, I think last weekend or 2 weekends ago, we had the fall festival, where just really encourage all the student body to enjoy the last bit of the fall weather. So we had a concert, we had some pumpkin painting, face painting. We had this traditional scavenger hunt in the Village Green of Clinton. So there are a lot of activities to do. For example, the scavenger hunt, you got a sheet, you visit all the stores in the Village of Clinton, check out those locations. A lot of the store owners will give you some free stuff. So you come home with a lot of just free swag from the Village of Clinton, and then after you complete the scavenger hunt, you get like a free shirt that says Hamilton Clinton and stuff like that. So I've had a couple of that shirt. I've done the challenge a couple of times. throughout my 4 years here in Hamilton. So yeah, that's a typical weekend. There are obvious activities to do, and yeah, stuff like that.
So I'm going to pass this question because I know, of course, everybody's weekends are different, right? Everybody's weekends and weekdays are different. So I'm going to pass this then to Yassine as well. What would you say traditional this weekend or week like? I do remember the fall festival last, that was 2 weeks ago, right? That was such a success. I saw so many students out and about and saw really great photos afterwards. Really fun. Also celebrating that some of the US traditions of pumpkins at this time of year and all of that type of thing. But yeah, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very glad I got to see the birth of that festival, because it was an idea by two RAs that were my friends. RAs are resident advisors, and what their plan is to call all the other RAs to come with them so they can use all the budget possible for their events and put it all together in one big event, basically. I'm glad that was such a huge success. But for me, I would say my weekend, so it would start on a Friday. I have a class until 4, which is my art class. So it's only convenient. It's very fun. It's very relaxing. And then usually Friday or Saturday, people go out at night. It's amazing. After my first year with all like the restrictions and COVID and everything is easing off now. People can, go out, have parties. Halloween parties were amazing on campus. But usually we do whatever we feel like doing on weekends. Really, we don't put too much thought into it. Lately, me and my friends, we've been doing this thing. So we have a lot of friends on the volleyball team, and we started traveling with the volleyball team. So basically, whatever they play, we will take a road trip to where they're playing. So last weekend we went to Vermont. We drove all the way to Vermont to watch our volleyball team play, and they're in the playoffs now. So if they happen to win their next game, we will go and watch them in Maine.
Oh, wow. So how far, so for people not terribly familiar with distance geography, how far is it to Vermont? How far to Maine?
So Vermont would be a 4-hour drive from Hamilton.
Okay.
And Maine would be probably around 7 to 8 hours.
That's a long drive.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's, you do all this work during the week and you feel like, you do whatever you want on the weekend. And if it makes you feel good, if it sounds fun, people don't really care, how much time or effort it takes. So I love the fact that, you honestly, most of the time, you don't know what's coming in the weekend. So that's very exciting.
Well, you mentioned really quickly the idea of Halloween, and we've been talking a little bit about fall activities, but Halloween is, of course, one of those holidays. It's a big deal here in the US, and some countries celebrate, some countries don't. I'm wondering, did any of you dress up as Halloween, and can you share what your Halloween costume was?
Yes, I was supposedly a cowboy.
Okay.
But nobody got it, so I ended up being a space traveler.
It's because cowboys and space travelers look very similar normally.
See, people they said I looked very like steampunk, very industrial. So they were like, you're probably like a time space traveler more than a cowboy, which I liked. I went with that.
That's good. There's a US television show called Firefly, which kind of brings together the West and like so maybe There you go. Potential future Firefly character if that show comes back. Anybody else dress up, want to share about their costume? Jerry.
I was Audrey Hepburn for a day, for night, and then I was like sex education, like Maeve and Otis. I was Otis for a day as well. So that was really fun.
That's called range, right?
Yeah.
Range of expression. There you go. Yeah. I was Carmen Sandiego, which is a character from cartoons that kind of travels around the world in mysteries. So since I work in international education, it's like Carmen Sandiego. So yeah, it's definitely a fun thing, learning also about new cultures and new holidays, and Halloween costumes are kind of a big deal. Okay, so let's transition a little bit because We've been talking about getting involved in campus. And I know one thing that's on a lot of people's minds are, I'm going to travel all around the world. It's going to be a new culture. It's going to be a new location. How hard is it to make friends with Americans, for instance, right? So I'm going to ask this question of Victor. How hard is it to make friends with Americans?
Not hard at all. I mean, I've already talked about it. One of the reasons I chose Hamilton was, the smaller community and the really close interpersonal connections. So, from day one, I was, part of my orientation group. I was able to, just fit right in and, talk about life, talk about stuff. And my friends were interested to learn about, my own life as well. So we were able to talk about sports and just social life and classes you're taking and stuff like that. Everyone was really friendly, and then also especially with I made a lot of friends in my first year Japanese class. We were just hang out afterwards, and we have a lot of hobbies in common. So we were just talk about TV shows we watch, some animes we watch. So a lot of Hamilton attracts a lot of people who share similar hobbies, and even if they don't, everyone's eager to learn about different things. So I would say I've had a really great time making friends, especially my first year. Yeah.
Tinashe, same question.
Sure. I think at the core of it, it's realizing that American people are humans too. And because they're human, we have shared experiences of sorts. And so for me, it wasn't particularly difficult because, again, if you're joining all of these different small communities, that means you have something that brought you together. So that's already something to bond over. And so I think that was also very interesting. And I think as an international student, you're uniquely situated because very few have your experience, right? It's where you're coming from. As I mentioned earlier, I'm from Zimbabwe. Not many people have been to Zimbabwe, and so they want to know about you, and they really care deeply about just finding out who are you, what is this place, and how can we best learn about just you and everything that makes you who you are. And inversely, you can do the same for them, because I'd been to the United States before coming to Hamilton, but then I haven't been everywhere, and so there's still way more to learn, and way more to learn about other people as well. And so I think that's always very interesting for me, because I don't ever feel like I have to suppress who I am just to fit in with the crowd, or just to join some community or the other. So it's been good so far. It's been pretty good. And also, you'd always have international students to fall back on if you're struggling with, like, say, cultural connection. You can always find, say, someone to talk to within your own cohort, and so many different communities, I must say. And I don't think you'll ever feel completely lost just by yourself when you're here.
So I think that's important also. A couple of things in there, right? So Americans are human beings too, but sometimes it's really helpful to have international students who kind of get a little bit of the different positionality and challenge and different cultural differences, things like that. Yassine, can you talk a little bit about the international student community at Hamilton? How would you describe the international student community here at Hamilton?
I would say being an international student is a very special situation, because you, like we talk, you can make friends with all like the American kids and everything, but you're inherently part of a community the moment you come here, and it's the international community. So these are people that you'll have bonds with before you even start making these bonds, because a lot of these people understand what you're going through, understand a little bit of your story. Everyone's different, but at the end of the day, you're people that came from the outside and all converged here at Hamilton College. So I like the idea that by default, you're part of this community. We have the ICA, which is the International Cultural Association. It's led by international students. And basically, this organization hosts events for international students. We just had a little party. We had music, we had international food and everything. But also they do some very important stuff, which is making sure international students feel well. We have what's called the ICA Talks, where basically international students come together and talk about a certain subject regarding their experience here or outside of Hamilton. And I think it's very special to know that you're part of not only this campus, but you're part of a very tight community on this campus as well.
I think that type of idea of international student talks, it brings me to a question that a student has asked, which says, can you tell me about what you do when you're homesick? Or are there experiences that make you feel at home in Hamilton, right? So for international students, particularly traveling thousands of miles, different culture, different food, there's a lot in there, and chances are strong that homesickness is going to come up at some point. So I wonder if we can talk about homesickness. How do you deal with homesickness, and what makes you feel more at home? I'm going to pass. Yassine, actually, if you want to keep answering this one, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I feel like it's only normal that you feel homesick. I felt it a couple of times, and I feel like your best support system is the people around you. Like, I'm not saying it's strictly international students, even though they might be the ones that understand you the most. But sometimes, you meet people, like the US itself isn't small. So sometimes you have people that also travel thousands of miles just to get here from the other side of the country. So like, never limit yourself in terms of like your support system. You might never know who will be your best supporter on campus. So I would say, if you ever feel homesick, definitely reach out. Reach out to your admissions people as well. Wonderful people. They're still there after you get here as well. They're not just here to make sure you get to campus. They make sure you're also doing well during your stay on campus. But also, reach out. ICA is a huge resource, and all their board members are international students. So basically, it doesn't matter which one you want to talk to. They dealt with that a lot more because they definitely have experience, and the experience gets passed down whenever seniors graduate. They hand the ICA to someone else, and overall, we also have all these professional support systems on campus. For me this year, it was amazing. I got in touch with a therapist on campus, and half of her job was basically to make sure I can talk about back home. I can just tell her everything about back home, what I miss and everything, so by the time we're done talking to each other, I already feel better. So yeah, I would say do not shy away from being homesick. It will happen. It's normal, but do not panic. If it happens, there's definitely people there for you.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and thank you for sharing that. And it's an important part of this is that hopefully coming to the US is hopefully going to be a really great experience for your education, but the reality is it's not always going to be smooth sailing, and things are going to be hard. And if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? So it's acknowledging the fact it's going to be difficult. And part of that experience is also going to be knowing when you have to ask for help and when to use those types of resources as well. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. Tinashe, would you like to share?
Sure. I wanted to quickly share on this question as well, because that's also something that I thought deeply about just coming here. A little bit of just my background. Before I came here, I also learned at a boarding school in another country altogether. And so this idea of homesickness, it's just been somewhere. And so I've just been thinking about it for a while. And I think, if you can't necessarily go home, I think sometimes it will serve you better to bring home with you. And so right now, as I'm looking around in my setup, I have so many different things that remind me of home that are right here. So it's this trinkets and just statuettes and just things that are scattered all over my desk that are just reminiscent of home for me. And so it's things like that that are always reminding me of, where I came from, things like that are just always grounding me. And I sometimes I listen to music from home for like 2, 3, 4 hours as I'm studying, things. It's just putting myself in that, just in that vibe. It's a really great time. And after that, realize, oh wait, I'm in a different place altogether. I have to get up and I'm in a different country. So things that like that always excite me, and they always keep me on my toes, and they're just always great. And also just carving out time to talking to people back home if you can, just like connecting with people, because when you're in college, it's easy to get lost in everything and say, I'm free, I'm independent, I can just leave everything behind. But that's not very kind or nice, is it? Because those are the things that, you know, helped you get to where you are. And you just have to, if you're feeling homesick, just connect and ask, what's going back home? Just hear stories about everything that's there. You'd be surprised at just how better your day or your week or your month can get, really, just based off of that experience alone. So those are some of the things that I try to do, but to each their own. So you can just, whatever just makes you feel the most grounded, I think it could help.
Maintaining connections to where people who've helped you and for your home country and those types of things absolutely can be really, really helpful when dealing with homesickness. Now, we've had a lot of questions that were submitted. Unfortunately, we are running a little long on time. So we wanted to thank you all, of course, for your questions. And I'm going to thank you, of course, to our panelists. I'm going to ask a final question, which is, probably our folks on our call today are a little nervous because, of course, this is right before the first deadlines approach for application processes. So each of you has successfully gone through the application process. So I'd love if you would each be able to offer our students on our call a piece of advice. What advice would you give to students this time? Or you can also frame it as, what advice do you wish you'd had in early November of the year you were applying to colleges? What would that advice be? I'm going to start with Cherry.
I think a lot of times I used to think about the idea of a dream school. Like I used to think, oh, would it be nice if I could go to this school? But one thing that I do want to remind, or I want to remind my past self, is the concept of a dream school is very much like constructed. Like you just think that would be your dream school. Like I've never lived through like I wouldn't know Hamilton is my dream school until I lived through it. I think one thing that I really do urge you to think about a lot is, where is a place you can thrive? I think that will be a much more important validator than really any of these aloof questions about like, oh, what, like, where is this, like, I don't know. I think, and I do think after going through here in Hamilton, and I think Hamilton can call it my dream school only because I have this lived experience. So yeah, that's my one piece.
So yeah, trying to some people thinking about, this is my dream school, and kind of trying to mold themselves that way versus finding a school which would actually allow them to thrive from where they are, right? Absolutely. Victor, what type of advice would you give either to prospective students or to yourself in November of the year you are applying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is just to recognize that it's not possible to know everything. So just, recognize that like I don't know everything. So maybe I should ask, and just be an active member and ask people about it. Ask a friend, like maybe a friend of you went to Hamilton. Ask them about how like what your experience was like, or maybe by participating in this web seminar, ask us about like where you can find our information. I think you can, right? Afterwards, if you have any more questions, we're not here to hunt you or something. We're friendly people, so ask about it. Reach out to people and ask them about what should I do, and what can I improve on, and do you have any tips? And people are friendly around you, so everyone I think will be very willing to reply, reach back out, and comment and tips, advices, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Great advice. So absolutely realizing that this is a complicated process, right? And it's not possible for you to know everything. So thinking about questions that you have and then reaching out for that type of help. I think that's really, really great advice. Tinashe, same question, advice that you would have given yourself last year.
Sure. I think for me, it's, I think the first thing is be honest. That's honest with yourself and honest with the application. You'd be surprised that these colleges, and Hamilton in particular, they want you for who you are. And that's true for me, because I look back at my own personal statement, for example, and I think I wrote about a rap song I wrote when I was 13. And to me, that sounded comical at first, but then that was who I was, and that shaped who I now am. And so just be honest with yourself and just with everything. And you realize that the weight is taken off for you to mold this character who you think Hamilton wants to see and all these other things. I think honesty will serve you well. It will serve you really well. And then put in the work. So after you're honest, put in the work, definitely, whether that's in school or just on your application, just researching this place, researching Hamilton and coming to calls like this. I think those are very great steps. And then I think finally, just let it go. I think I really struggle with letting go of my applications, especially around this time, because I'm nervous. I think, I need to tweak this, or is this the right thing? I think at this point, if you put intentional thought into it, it's sometimes just freeing to let it go, and you might do well. And I think we're all doing great, and I hope this call really helped. But things like this, I think, are very helpful in just making these decisions.
Thank you, thank you. And that kind of the whole idea of being honest and that type of stuff kind of comes back to that whole idea of know thyself, doesn't it? A little bit in there. So with that final response from Yassine.
Yeah, for me, I would just say, make sure you're you on your application and everything. You really have to realize that these colleges are looking for who you really are, not who you know. There's no certain mold you have to fit, or a certain personality you have to have, or a certain profile you have to have. Just make sure you're as honest as possible. I think that's the big thing for me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. That know thyself and be honest and realize, trust that you'll find the right place. So I wanted to thank all four of our panelists particularly, and thank everyone for joining us, regardless of where you are in the world. We really, really appreciate you, that you came to today's session, and thank you to our panelists. And we want to wish everyone on this call the best of luck as you're navigating this college search process. Again, a little bit of the advice from our panelists: being yourself, also making sure that you are at a certain point after doing the work, letting it go and trusting to the universe. Things are going to happen, and maybe you find yourself at Hamilton, maybe you find yourself at a different institution, but eventually it's all going to be okay. But with that said, thank you to everyone, and we wish you a great morning, afternoon, evening, day, depending on where you are calling in from. Thank you.